Speed is an interesting part of Minecraft, and most people think they have it figured out by the time they reach endgame using Elytra to move around. Turns out though, there's an even more endgame method of moving that some people don't even know about. Dolphin tunnels. The tunnels can make you move upwards of 144 blocks a second, which according to the wiki is almost 5 times as fast as an Elytra. This method is so fast that you can even beat out someone using an Elytra in the nether. So if this is such a great way to travel, why have I never heard of it? Because it's incredibly annoying to make, but don't click off just yet, there's still hope. As a proud builder of way too many of these, I thought I'd put together a guide on how to make your own, and hopefully make the process a little bit smoother for anyone else getting bored of Elytra. The first thing that you need to decide is if your distance is actually worth it. If you don't have an Elytra, then yes, it will be. If you do have an Elytra though, you'll want to make sure that your distance is under 800 blocks. If you have an incredibly beefy PC or server, you can bump that distance up to 2000 blocks. Anything more than those and it'll just be faster to use an Elytra in the nether. If you're curious where I'm getting these numbers from, check out last week's video as I go into a lot more detail about that. Now that you've determined your starting and ending points, it's important you understand how these tunnels work exactly, or you will die. I wish I was joking, but the amount of times I've seen my friends die in these tunnels because they don't know how they work is absurd. This is how fast you swim. This is with Depth Strider 3, this is with Depth Strider and Soul Speed 3, and this is with all of that plus Dolphin's Grace. You need, and I cannot stress this enough, all 3 of those things. Without it, you will drown, which, if I'm being honest, is one of the most embarrassing deaths you could have. Anyways, to begin, go to your first starting point and dig down. You can make the tunnels at any Y level, but I like to make mine at Y equals 30 since I find it doesn't interfere with most things. To make a simple bubble elevator, just use soul sand, pour water at the top, and then use kelp to make it all source blocks. Going down, just make a hole and at the bottom either use water or a twisted vine to break your fall. Make sure to use shears on it so it doesn't grow anymore. Now onto the fun part, digging the tunnel. Let's talk about tunnel size real quick. You could technically make a 1x1 tunnel, but I'd advise against it since it doesn't give you any room to move around and making turns might be difficult. 2x2 works, but it's not symmetrical, which can make decorating it harder. My personal preference is a 3x3. The first time I made these, I did a massive tunnel and it took forever to dig out. Don't make it this big. As far as mining goes, TNT works really well. You can also use beacons, but keep in mind you'll probably have to move it around a bit. Once you have the tunnel dug out to your destination, just make the same elevator system we did on the other side. The next step is kind of optional, but you'd really be missing out if you didn't decorate the tunnel somehow. Make sure you do this now, as it'll be a pain to do later with all the water added. My go-to design is just white concrete with a stripe down the middle, as it helps organize which tunnel you're in. Also a quick note about lighting, space these out with 2 blocks in between. The first time I did it with 5 blocks in between, but what happens is you get these shadows and when you go really fast it kinda like flashes your screen, and I don't know, some people might not find it annoying, but I found it annoying. These are my favorite designs for tunnels, but keep in mind you'll want it to be fairly simple since the tunnel's gonna be really long and you're gonna be moving so fast anyway. Make sure the bottom layer is soul soil, not soul sand, and once you've done that you're free to flood the tunnel. To keep the water in, I like to use fence gates, but you could use other things like signs. Alright, time for the worst part, moving the dolphins. You need to move the dolphin from the ocean to the tunnel. The best way to do this is to put it on a lead and splash it with slow falling and water breathing potions. Also, you'll need roughly 2 to 3 name tags per tunnel. The slow falling stops it from taking fall damage, and the water breathing lets it live out of water. If you have the skill, you can try to fly it to where it needs to go, although you can also just walk it there. Once the dolphin falls down to where it needs to go, dig a hole near one end of the tunnel. You'll want to push the dolphin into a setup that looks like this, with a block of soul sand, water, and air. Don't forget to name tag it. Make sure you repeat this process for the other end of the tunnel, and if your tunnel is long enough, you may have to put a dolphin in the middle too. Remember that you need Depth Strider and Soul Speed 3 for this to work properly, and if you really want to play it safe, get respiration on your helmet as well. I know you're eager to get zoom in, but a few notes if you will. If you have a large tunnel system, consider setting up a map art that shows where all your tunnels link up to. It can be really useful if you play on a large server with everyone making their own tunnels, and this way you don't get lost. If you want to get the true 144 blocks a second, you can use a beacon to get speed 2, but unless you have a super beefy computer, the world isn't going to load in fast enough, so for most people it's best not to bother. As far as intersections go, I would recommend cutting back on the soul soil before you reach it. This will help you slow down, but you could also add something like this that shows which color tunnels are coming up. Also, just a quick reminder, make sure that you're swimming at the bottom of the tunnel, otherwise you won't get the soul speed effect. Obviously, this isn't the best way to travel. If you play on a server, you could just set up an ender pearl chamber, but I mean, come on, these things are stupid fun to use. Also, for whatever reason, every time I make one of these tunnels, I get these like random spots of error somehow. If anyone has a solution for this, let me know. I've tried a lot of things, and at this point I think it might just be a bug. If you have any questions, you can leave them down in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. But anyways, that's about it. I'll see you in the next one.